Today, we will be taking a look at one of the most significant battles in the history of Islam, the Battle of Yarmuk. It was fought between the Roman Empire and the Muslims in 636 CE near the Yarmuk River, which is now the border between Syria and Jordan. On August 15, 636, the two armies faced each other on the banks of the Yarmuk River. The Roman army was composed of 200,000 soldiers, while the Muslim army consisted of 40,000. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Muslim army was trained and disciplined, and they were led by some of the finest military commanders of their time. The first day of the battle saw the Roman general Bahan move 1/3 of his infantry forward to engage the Muslim line. The engagement continued for several hours without either army losing any significant ground. Bahan did not reinforce his forward troops, and at sunset, both armies broke contact and returned to their respective camps. On the dawn of the second day, the Romans were much more aggressive and launched their attack while the Muslims were busy with their morning prayers. Bahan moved his two central armies to pin the Muslim central forces and ordered the Roman wings to create maximum pressure on the Muslim wings. However, this move was already anticipated by Khalid ibn al-Walid radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who had placed a strong outpost during the night to delay surprise attacks by the enemy. The Muslim army had enough time to take battle formation once they got the news of Roman army's movements. Once the two armies engaged each other, the Roman left flank charged the Muslim right flank and could force the Muslim infantry stationed there to retreat. The commander of Muslim right wing, Amr bin al-As radiallahu ta'ala anhu, launched his cavalry troops to counter-attack. The sudden dash by Muslim cavalry held the line for some time, but due to the numerical superiority of the Roman soldiers, the line was pushed towards the Muslim base camp. Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anhu realized that the situation was getting serious for the Muslim right wing, and it could collapse any time if help was not sent on time. He launched a three-pronged attack, and this well-timed counter-attack forced the Roman to step back, and the Muslims regained the ground that was initially lost. However, during the same time, the situation was worsened for the Muslim left wing under the command of Yazid, as it did not receive any assistance from the reserve troops. Even after launching a cavalry counterattack, Yazid and his troops were forced to retreat to their camps. Muslim women came out of the tents while throwing insults at the retreating Muslims. This motivated the Muslims to turn back and continue fighting the Romans. By midday, Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anhu sent a detachment of cavalry troops to help the Muslim left flank and again launched a three-pronged counter-attack. Simultaneously, he moved against the right side of the Roman central army with the rest of the reserve troops to increase the threat. This brilliant maneuver forced the Roman to step back, although they did not lose their discipline. By the end of the day, the Romans were demoralized as their well-rounded attack plan, backed by their numerical superiority, had failed to deliver the desired results. On the third day of the battle, the Romans changed their strategy. The day began with the entire left wing and left center of the Roman army charging the Muslim right. Amr and Shurahbil radiallahu ta'ala anhu managed to repulse the initial attack with their troops. But soon, the Romans committed more fresh troops to intensify the assault. The Muslims, however, had no extra troops to reinforce their position. Observing the situation, Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anhu made a decisive move. He stuck with his mobile force at the right side of the Roman left center. The cavalry reserve under Amr radiallahu ta'ala anhu was ordered to attack the left flank of the Roman left wing. Shurahbil radiallahu ta'ala anhu led a charge to the junction between the Roman left wing and the Roman center left. The fighting reached its peak intensity and the both sides suffered heavy casualties. However, the Romans suffered significantly higher losses in compared to the Muslims. By dusk, the Muslims had pushed the Roman back to their initial attacking positions, and day 3 had come to an end. On the 4th day, the General Bahan decided to follow the same strategy as on the 3rd day. The Muslim strength was depleted due to the casualty and injuries from the previous days, especially the Muslim right, which has suffered the heaviest damage. Taking advantage of this situation, Bahan focused the intensity of the Roman attack on the Muslim right. Similar to the previous day, both armies made contact, and as the fighting reached its peak intensity, the Muslim right was compelled to retreat. The Roman center left, consisting mostly of Armenian recruits, broke through the Muslim lines and pushed the Muslim center right, commanded by Shurahbil radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, much further than their initial position. This opened up a significant gap in the Muslim defense, and Khalid radiyallahu ta'ala anhu became worried, realizing that his reserve forces alone might not be able to repel a general attack by the Romans along the entire front. In a strategic move, Khalid radiyallahu ta'ala anhu ordered the Muslim left wing under Yazid and the Muslim center left under Abu Ubaidah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu to launch simultaneous attacks on the Romans, stopping them from launching a full frontal assault. Once this was achieved, Khalid radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, leading his reserve forces, galloped into action and launched another 3-pronged attack on the Armenian regiment. A fierce and savage combat ensued, as both the Armenians and the Muslims fought desperately to hold their ground. After several hours, the Armenians could not overcome the courage and determination of the Muslim warriors, and they pulled back from their advanced position. Meanwhile, as the Muslim right and the reserve forces were occupied with the Armenians, the Romans deployed their horse archers regiment against Yazid and Abu Ubaidah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu troops at midday. The Roman archers, with their superior range, subjected the Muslim troops to intense archery, forcing them to step back to escape the deadly arrows. Many Muslim soldiers were wounded, and some even lost their sight to the relentless barrage of the Roman arrows. This day would forever be remembered as the Day of Lost Eyes. However, a small group of 400 horsemen, led by Ikrimah, refused to retreat and took an oath to fight until their last breath. They attacked the Romans with the ferocity of hungry lions, stalling the Roman forces on their front and causing damage to the regiments passing on their flanks. Each of these 400 Muslim warriors, including Ikrimah, either achieved martyrdom on the battlefield or succumbed to their injuries immediately after the battle. Such was the bravery and sacrifice of these Muslim warriors for the cause of Islam. Despite the valiant efforts of the Muslim left, the flow of the battle still seemed to favor the Romans. The Muslim left was continuously pushed further and further back towards their camp. Sensing the urgency of the situation, Muslim women rushed out of their camp once again to aid their fellow soldiers. It was a do-or-die moment, and everyone understood the gravity of the situation. Shouting Allahu Akbar with unwavering determination, the Muslim women armed themselves with whatever they could find nearby. Some wielded swords or daggers, while others brandished tent poles and staffs. Some even resorted to throwing stones at the enemy. The sight of these fearless Muslim women rushing towards the enemy, unafraid and resolute, recharged the Muslim soldiers with a renewed vigor and courage. Inspired by the bravery of their female counterparts, the Muslim soldiers joined in the counter-attack. By the afternoon, the Muslim left had regained most of the ground they had lost. The fourth day, the most severe day of the battle, had come to an end. Even the full force of the mighty Roman army had failed to overpower the Muslims. This tremendous achievement boosted the spirit of the Muslim forces and demoralized the Romans. The Muslims had inflicted crippling losses on many Roman regiments, and Khalid radiallahu ta'ala who realized that the most critical phase of the battle was now behind them. The mighty Roman military machine had started to falter. However, the price of victory had been high for the Muslims. Many brave Muslim warriors had laid down their lives on the battlefield. The number of wounded fighters overwhelmed the Muslim camps. Despite the immense challenges they faced, the Muslims persisted, knowing that the fight was not yet over. The plain of Yarmuk would witness more bloodshed before the dust of the battle finally settled. As the sun rose on the fifth day, both armies took their battle positions once again. Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anhu scanned the enemy lines, searching for any signs of movement. For a couple of hours, an eerie stillness settled over the battlefield, with neither side making a move. Then, emerging from the Roman ranks, an emissary ventured forth and made his way toward the Muslim army. The emissary carried an offer of truce proposing a temporary ceasefire and negotiation with the Muslims. The Romans had been gripped by a profound loss of morale. The tide had turned in favor of Muslims, and Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anhu was confident that if the battle continued, they would ultimately emerge victorious. Realizing the peril of granting the Romans an opportunity to regroup and reinforce, Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anhu steadfastly refused the proposal for a truce. However, no actual fighting transpired on that fifth day. Instead, both armies maintained a wary distance from each other, using the time to regroup and prepare for the impending combat on the following day. Anticipating the sixth day, Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anhu devised a new battle strategy. He consolidated all the cavalry units from different regiments, forming a formidable mounted force comprising nearly 8,000 horses. Up until the fourth day, the Muslim forces had adopted a defensive stance. But now Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anhu was determined to unleash an offensive onslaught. As the two armies lined up for the battle, a daring maneuver unfolded from the Roman right flank. Gregory, the commander of that flank, rode to the space between the armies and issued a challenge to the Muslims: a duel. This audacious move was the Roman desperate attempt to revigorate their flagging troops. Abu Ubaidah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, recognizing the significance of the challenge, accepted on behalf of the Muslims. The two warriors engaged in a fierce horseback duel, their swords clashing and blades gleaming under the sun's rays. Moments later, Gregory abruptly turned his horse and raced back towards the Roman ranks, seemingly fleeing. Abu Ubaidah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, assuming his opponent was trying to escape, pursued him. But after a short distance, Gregory abruptly reversed direction, catching Abu Ubaidah radiallahu ta'ala anhu off guard with an attack. Yet Abu Ubaidah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, a skilled swordsman in his own right, expertly maneuvered his horse, simultaneously dodging the strike and launching a swift counterattack. As the two generals passed each other, it was Gregory who suffered a fatal blow, his neck slashed by Abu Ubaidah radiallahu ta'ala anhu's sword. The Roman general tumbled from his horse, meeting an instant demise. a triumphant Abu Ubaidah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu rejoined the Muslim ranks, the victory fueling the growing determination within their hearts. Almost immediately, Khalid radiyallahu ta'ala anhu issued a resounding command, ordering the entire Muslim army to charge forward. The Romans stood dumbfounded, their disbelief palpable as they witnessed the heavily weakened Muslim forces adopting an aggressive stance. The Muslims, their infantry at the forefront, clashed with the Roman soldiers, engaging them in a brutal melee. Meanwhile, Khalid radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, leading the United Muslim Cavalry Unit, executed a daring flanking maneuver, launching a surprise attack on the Roman left from the side and rear. Simultaneously, Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu spearheaded the frontal assault. This audacious assault caught the Roman general Bahan off guard, preventing him from effectively deploying his cavalry units to counter the Muslims. Before Bahan could react, the Roman left wing had crumbled under the unrelenting onslaught. The surviving Roman soldiers regrouped with the center left, awaiting the arrival of the cavalry to engage the Muslims. However, the Roman cavalry proved unable to withstand the ferocious charge of the Muslim horsemen. At this pivotal moment, Shurahbil radiyallahu ta'ala anhu led his troops in pushing against the Roman center left, seizing the opportunity presented by the breakthrough of the Muslim horsemen. The domino effect had begun. Abu Ubaidah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu and Yazid, filled with valor and determination, also pressed forward, intensifying the assault. One after another, the Roman regiments crumbled under the relentless Muslim thrust. By midday, the Romans found themselves in a full-scale retreat, their forces disintegrating under the weight of the Muslim onslaught. Recognizing the significance of this moment, Khalid radiyallahu ta'ala anhu swiftly maneuvered his troops to the northern flank of the battlefield, effectively blocking the fleeing Romans' escape routes. Only one passage remained open for the retreating Roman soldiers, a narrow crossing named Wadiur Rukkad, situated across a deep gorge. Little did the Romans know that Khalid radiyallahu ta'ala anhu had meticulously planned for this moment. Either he had dispatched a unit of 500 Muslim horsemen led by Dhirar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu to take a wide detour around the enemy camp and position themselves covertly on the far side of the passage, effectively cutting off the Romans' retreat. The Romans, unaware of this concealed unit, approached the passage with hopes of survival, only to be confronted by the sight of 500 determined Muslim horsemen obstructing their path. As the retreating Romans drew near, Dhirar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu unleashed his unit in a thousands downhill charge, descending upon the panicked and weary Romans. Trapped within the narrowness of the passage, the Romans found themselves helpless against the ferocity of the Muslim onslaught. And as the main contingent of the Muslim cavalry arrived from the rear, the Romans became ensnared in a relentless pincer movement. With no room to maneuver, the Romans were trapped, their fate was sealed. Yet, amidst the chaos, not all the Romans succumbed to the Muslim cavalry's maneuvers. Approximately a third of the Roman army managed to retreat in an orderly manner, positioning themselves in a corner of the Yarmuk plain, encircled by the Muslims in a semicircular arrangement. In this section, a grueling fight ensued as the afternoon sun began to wane. The Muslims, wielding their weapons with lethal precisions, slashed, stabbed, and thrust their enemies, relentlessly advancing through the Roman ranks. Meanwhile, the Muslim cavalry, heavily dealt with the remainder of the Roman soldiers, joined the final leg of the battle. Under the relentless pressure and ferocity of Muslim charge, the Romans started to crumble. Step by step, they were pushed back, gradually reaching the edge of a ravine. Behind them loomed a deep gorge, and before them stood the unwavering Muslim warriors. With no room to retreat, the Roman soldiers engaged in a desperate struggle, pushing their comrades backward. This chaotic and heroic scene triggered a human stampede as Romans were trampled under the feet of their fellow soldiers or pushed over the precipice, their cries echoing through the air as they meet a gruesome fate at the bottom of the ravine. As daylight faded, only a few thousand Roman soldiers remained. Their spirit broken, they conceded defeat, and with that, the battle finally concluded. Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anhu in this monumental battle emerged victorious, securing one of the most significant triumphs of his illustrious career. The Battle of Yarmuk surpassed even the splendor of the Battle of Walaja, solidifying its status as Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anhu's greatest and most impactful victory. The Eastern Roman Empire suffered a devastating blow as the Muslims annihilated the Roman legions of Syria, effectively shattering the Roman dominion over Greater Syria. The cost of the victory for the Muslims was not insignificant. Around 4,000 brave Muslim warriors lost their lives in the Battle of Yarmuk. However, the Roman army endured a struggling loss, with estimates suggesting that they lost more than half of their troops, with casualties possibly reaching up to 70,000. The Battle of Yarmuk, which took place on the momentous day of August 20, 636, marked a monumental turning point in history. The mighty Eastern Roman Empire, once considered invincible, was brought to its knees by the Rashidun Caliphate at the plains of Yarmuk. Thanks to the exemplary leadership of Khalid bin Walid radiallahu ta'ala anhu and the unwavering dedication of the Muslim warriors. It was a glorious day, a testament to the indomitable spirit of the Muslims who proved once again that, with strong faith, resolute determination, and unwavering trust in Allah, any formidable challenge would be overcome. The Battle of Yarmuk stands as a shining example of the triumph of unity, faith, and unwavering courage. The devastating defeat suffered by the Eastern Roman Empire at Yarmuk effectively marked the end of their dominance in Greater Syria. The Muslims emerged as the dominant force in the region, heralding a new era in history. The significance of this battle reverberated across the ages, forever etching the name of Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anhu and his valiant warriors into the annals of military greatness. Thus, the Battle of Yarmuk serves as a reminder that, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, the human spirit can rise above adversity and achieve extraordinary feats. It stands as a beacon of hope and inspiration, a testament to the power of determination and the unwavering pursuit of justice and freedom.